Hey everyone, it's your boy Matthew East here, coming to you from Canberra, Australian Capital Territory, Australia. Behind me is Lake Burley Griffin. You'll also see a National Library, that's that big building there. And then over here, I'm shooting this pretty improv, so maybe I'm not getting everything right. In frame, in the distance, that's our Parliament House. That's the one with the big poles and the flag on it. And in front of that's our old Parliament House. We had to create another one later on because the old one was just too small. Hopefully I got that in frame. Today's video is going to be about my move to Canberra and what I kind of learnt from adapting to the culture here and my first job here. I learned a lot from that experience. And maybe I have to be very careful with what I say today. So if I go back and forth, even if I edit things out later on, understand I'm trying to be sensitive because a lot of the things I need to talk to you about today are quite sensitive matters. So I moved here around 3 years ago to do my internship to be a psychologist. At that same time, I was leading a student union activity at the University of Southern Queensland, which ended up reforming a significant amount of their programs. I had just stopped taking antidepressants because my last job involved working with people, very violent people often, on the NDIS scheme. And my job was to help them get back into society after potentially being in prison or, people coming off meth. There's also the more chill stuff as well. Did everything from wiping people's butts to talking people down with knives. I had some experiences in that job. And this was my first white collar job. The closest thing I'd done to this was in Navy, and that was when I was 19, and I think I was like 27 when I moved down here. And it was a very young 27. I've had a I would describe myself as a bit immature for my age. Oddly world wearied, but still immature. I didn't really realize that I was neurodivergent in the ways that I am. I have ADHD and ASD, and I never really acknowledged that. And it sort of came out in my first white collar job because whilst I'd completed 3 degrees and done quite well at it, I was used to being in a very regulated environment. I wasn't used to having all the noise around me, and I'm excellent company to be around. But when I have to deal with a lot of different changes at once, it's difficult for me to keep masking. That's a side effect of, that's something that you have to do if you're neurodivergent. Interacting with people is an extra effort. It's not something which feels natural all the time. We're certainly good at parties. I'm a lot of fun, but office environments are draining. And anyway, so I got this job, and I actually have a really good team. And this is the only job I've ever been fired from where I've been like at the end of it like, nah man, that was okay. I wish these people well. And there's not much resentments. I have to make this video today because there are some loose ends I need to tie up with it. So my job, it's corporate. It was my introduction to the corporate world. It was my introduction to the middle class. I've never met a person called Lawrence before in my life, and in the space of 2 weeks I'd met 2 people named Lawrence. One time I went to the pub here in Canberra and I asked a guy what his name was after I forgot it. I think I called him Lawrence, actually. That's what happened. I called him Lawrence. He was like, hey, how do you know that's my dad's name? He thought it was like some inside joke. He was like, oh, he said, no, my name's Fraser. And I was just like, only a guy called Fraser would have a dad called Lawrence. All right? It's obviously a different cultural group. And I find myself living in this share house because I go to the first place that I can go. It's run by a Finnish woman who I'm still friends with. I've moved back into that home. I've got an Indian and a Bangladeshi housemate, and there's an Australian guy I'm living with. And he's an interesting character. He had paranoid schizophrenia. Either way, start my job. And my interest is in research methods. I've done what in psychology would be considered PhD level statistics, and that's not something to brag about compared to other disciplines. PhD statistics for psychology would be bachelor statistics for data scientists, potentially. Like I ended up doing work with latent variability and these funky things, but in psychology, it's kind of like we do maths using crayons. Okay, it's a different thing, but I'm pretty versed in it compared to most psychs, and same with my research methods. Now, what I find is that these people, they kind of live in this different world. And it's a world that I realized I didn't really want to interrupt, um, because my other interest is in ideology. I come from a religious community, and I've been around a lot of different cultures. Like people say, look, uh, watch a lot of my behaviors. It's like, hey man, you're not exactly white. Like there's a kind of a meme that I'm like a white black guy, and that's not true at all. I'm very much like I identify as what the British would call in the early 2000s a chav. That's someone who is the words, the meaning of the words changed. That's someone who is reasonably lower class, and I say that kind of in a bit of a strange way because my family, I went to a cheap private school and these things, but those have never been the people I've associated with. Relatively lower class, very multicultural. I find a lot of middle class social norms and behaviours quite strange, and a lot of the expectations that middle class people have about their lives very strange, like this idea of um, yeah, a lot of the when I'd sit down in the break room and people were talking about downsizing their homes, and I was like, you guys own your home? What the fuck, right? And they're like talking about who bought what real estate, and they're talking about who built the homes. It was a different thing. But either way, my job, I find out, is what we do is that we solve problems for insurance companies. It's not really healthcare, and it's not really for the benefit of the participant. Your job is to make money for the is to solve problems for the insurance company. Um, Usually that insurance company's interests. So someone would be on the workers' compensation system. What we then do is that we find a way to kick them off so that the insurance company doesn't need to keep paying them. So we spy on people, we become their friends, we attend their appointments, we build rapport with them, and then when we get enough information, we kick them off their payment. But that kicking them off is intended to be because we've gotten them to a place where they no longer need it. In reality, the system does not quite work like that. Uh, it's not just a straightforward axing, right? There is a little bit of nuance to it. What I found it to be is that it was like working for the corporate KGB, and that's the best way to describe it. And the cultures of these organizations, like the way people do this work, is that they don't understand what they're doing, or their cultural worldview is aligned with it. And I found that the people I was working with, they did not really seem to understand what they were doing. That might sound arrogant for a person who was only doing the work for a short period of time, but I found out very quickly through the way that we were doing what are called labour market analyses that I was doing what I call fake qualitative research. I felt like my job was similar to what people do scientists were doing working for tobacco companies, where they were trying to prove that tobacco did not cause cancer. And I'd come up with all these strange research designs to try and prove that tobacco was not causing the cancer in the rats or the people or something like that. It was the same bloody thing. What I would do is that I would prove that someone could work by pretending to be them over the phone, and because my title at the bottom of the page was provisional psychologist, that I'd be able to pretend to be them, get an employer to say that they would hire them, and then get the doctor to say that was the case as well, right? By finessing them. So it's also got that double how do I put it, that double honor of both being the fake scientist and also the sort of like the medicine salesman, the drug salesman that they have in the US who commuse, that's not even a word, who get along well with the doctors to try and sell them the drugs. It's just that instead we're selling them solutions on behalf of insurance companies. That's what I realized the work was. We solve problems for insurance companies. We hunt people. We're kind of like a neoliberal secret police. Um, I'm not saying that in a dramatic way. It's like we live in a dystopia, and this is something which exists. Now, either way, I was working with lovely people, and at the time I'm doing my work, I'm coming off antidepressants. I'm being very socially awkward. My housemate who's kills himself because he's got schizophrenia, and I'm working during the work day. I'm organizing a union movement at my university. I really half-assed that job, and I was also stressed the fuck out. I did not do a good job of it, and I need to just say how artful people in this job get at kind of presenting these fake narratives on behalf of insurance companies. And the thing is, you kind of need to get used to believing it yourself. And that's why I've deliberately not made this video, because it might be insulting, and it also goes against some of my own ethics. Those ethics being that you need to be delicate with people's worlds and people's beliefs. First of all, because if you insult someone's underlying beliefs about their world and the orientation in it, if you either disprove it, you've now placed that person in existential confusion, and that if their work has them being doing very nasty things in a very complex system, which is not going to change, then all you've done is made it more difficult for them to feel good about going to work. Otherwise, you've just insulted them, and now they feel like their intelligence has been insulted. And these are not people who I want to insult. I think these people are lovely people. And they gave me every opportunity to succeed in that workplace, and I fucked it up. And I owe them an apology for that. But what I don't owe is rumors that I'm one, illiterate, and two, cannot do maths. Because neither of those things are true. Because that is what my team leader, who is a lovely person, mild sociopath, but who isn't, made a case for my termination. Really, I had just not done the work, was stressed out of my fucking mind, and wasn't able to mask and get along in the workplace because I was just completely fried under the pressures that I was under. So one of those accusations is that I didn't calculate a mean effectively, and she had to teach me how to calculate a mean. And like, I know how to make a mean. I know how to make an average. That is the easiest thing. But the way that we do things in this job is that you keep documenting everything. And you're hunting someone. You're looking at every single thing they are doing as you spy on them. And you're trying to get as much information as you can to build a case against them on behalf of the insurance company. And she switched that over and started doing that to me. The other thing was that I was illiterate, which just isn't true. I've got 3 fucking degrees. I remember, like, I am not illiterate. Right? And it's such a routine thing, because the other person who had this allegation made that they were illiterate taught fucking English at schools before doing this job. I think it was high school level. Then she became a social worker and started working for this workers' compensation company. Now, what was going on is that we were not what I would call an ideological fit for these companies. If your values do not align with an organization, it is going to be very hard for you to conform to it and get along with it. And the woman, both myself and this woman, had come into this job thinking that we were helping people who had injuries get on with their lives, and what we found instead is that really we were just fucking people over in the name of insurance companies. And the way that these organizations function is that they are designed as for-profit companies to make money. Your client, the client that they get the money from, is the insurance company. It's not the participant. The participant is the product. And the outcome that the workers' compensation company needs is for that person to get kicked off their payment so they get more money. And all these things are measured and accounted for and directed. Now, if you're comfortable doing that work, if you are middle class, Thatcher-esque, neoliberal, like, you can do this. You should do it. Like, and someone's going to have to do it. And there is people who are like my boss who are, I would say, go as far as to say, good people who do this work, and they do it very well, and they do it as gently as they can. And at the end of it, to this day, and still, I wish these people very well, but I do need to push back on these things, right? The job is to be a fake scientist or a fake, or like a American drug salesman to doctors, right? It's not psychology. It's something else. I describe it as a neoliberal spy agency, and I'm not saying that in a role-playing sense. We truly do live in a dystopia. Have a lovely day, everyone.